Welcome back to the discussion, DevOps and Rapid Application Development in Government, sponsored by GitLab on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network. My guest today is John Jeremiah, Enterprise DevOps Evangelist and Product Marketing Leader at GitLab. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy. You know, when I think about GitLabs, I think about iterative development, and your company has had over 90 monthly releases. It looks like you're using your own product to release quickly. And so how does GitLab achieve this velocity?
It's a great question, John. And in fact, GitLab, we use you're right, we use GitLab to build GitLab. We use GitLab to run GitLab. We run the company using GitLab issues. We plan marketing events. We plan activities using GitLab. We use GitLab for everything we do, but there's a couple of things we do that I think are really special and important to understand that allow us to move as fast as we move. You're right, it was 90 releases, 92 consecutive releases every month, and we do over 120 deploys per day to GitLab.com. And how do we do it?
That is agile software development, isn't it?
It is agile, and it's iterative, and so we do a couple of things. One of the things we've done is we've eliminated our silos. Now I don't mean organizationally we've eliminated the silos. I mean digitally we've eliminated the silos. We use Slack and we use messaging to communicate with each other. We communicate about issues together. We work in a transparent way that allows us to coordinate across teams, so that way legal or QA or security and the UX team, they're all involved from the very beginning of anything new we're planning. So that's one. Two, we've embraced the idea of small incremental changes. Now if you think about small changes as what people would call minimum viable product, well we've taken that to the next level, actually several levels. We call it minimum viable change. Minimum viable change means the smallest, most substantial thing we can do to make something better. And so therefore we put a change out and we get feedback and we go faster because we're getting feedback quicker, and that fast feedback helps us to move. Now we use GitLab. Our continuous integration, our pipelines build in security and build testing into the process as we're going. So GitLab helps us to accelerate and go faster. And so if I had to summarize it in just three key things, those would be the three I'd highlight as to how do we go as fast as we go. And of course, we're using containers and Kubernetes, which help us to deploy quickly and roll back. But I would focus on eliminate the silos, small changes, and automation helps us to go faster.
Many of our viewers may or may not work in a classified environment. This is Washington, D.C. And commercial organizations and federal organizations are all looking for cleared developers. What relationship does GitLab have with maybe helping in this situation?
Well, it's interesting, and it's a really common challenge, especially when you're trying to find developers who can gain and maintain a security clearance. Now, one of the things we've built into GitLab is a capability that I think is unique and helps people who are building projects like this. A lot of times, a lot of the development work can be done with unclassified developers on the low side. And GitLab supports that. We have a capability called Project Export, which allows a development team to build out the capability to the requirements, and then to hit a button and to export the entire construct of the project. The changes, the comments, the commits, the whole project gets exported and then can be walked into the high side environment and turned over to the cleared developers to continue the work.
It's almost like a nice filter, isn't it? It's like obfuscating specific names. As long as it works, it can be transferred and applied.
That's right. And it makes it easier for organizations to have these two different groups of developers, some working on the low side, others working on the high side.
And it's perfect because it's almost a beautiful way to develop code for a secure environment, because they don't have to know what this object is that they're developing for.
That's right. And that's a strategy a lot of organizations are taking, and we're able to support it and make it easier to do that because they're able to take their whole project and then simply export it out.
And so if the goal is to deliver software as fast as possible, this is a tool that will enable that, won't it?
That's right. And it's one of the things that is, as we look at rapid application development to respond to the changing threats and the changing challenges in the world, the tools will either enable you to go faster or they will be a hindrance. And we like to believe that what we're building at GitLab is enabling people to go incredibly faster.
Earlier we talked about toolchain. And let's come and revisit toolchain and see how it fits in with all these concepts we just discussed as far as project export and everything else. Where does the toolchain really fit in at the end of the game here with all these different concepts we talked about?
Well, And really starts from the early stages of planning. It starts with how do you plan and organize the work you're going to do. And so within GitLab, we manage issues and epics and planning, and we connect that seamlessly then into the actual use cases and the software development. Traditionally, people think the tool chain starts with automation and where a developer commits code and then it goes through a series of automated testing and then automated deployments. But the reality is the tool chain is the whole life cycle, and you've got to think about how do you keep track of the work that's underway and manage it all the way through to production, including monitoring and understanding how the application is performing. That whole view of the life cycle is what people need to have in order to be able to respond to what's happening in the environment.
Many of the people in Washington, D.C., they have a word they toss around with great fear and trepidation. It's audit. And so can this assist in the audit process?
Well, it absolutely can. I mean, imagine the audit process when you have 12 different tools that are managing the life cycle. That means there's 12 different potential sources of data, 12 different places you have to go find it. With GitLab, with our approach, there's one. There's one place to go find and to validate that your data is that the data is there to prove that you did what you said you were going to do. There's one place to establish the rules and the permissions to ensure that the process is being complied with.
And so this was just with documentation as well, because that goes hand in hand with the audit process. So documentation is built in, security is built in an iterative process where it's not just lip service to rapid software development. And you've heard that phrase for years, but this really is putting it in work boots.
It is. It's making it real. Now, at the end of the day, people have to commit to working in a different way, to working faster. They have to commit to putting in certain documentation steps into their pipeline based upon what their policies or requirements are. But having it all in one place makes it easy for organizations to build and manage their software and to do it in a way that's both compliant and secure.
I'd like to thank today's guest, John Jeremiah, Enterprise DevOps Evangelist and Product Marketing Leader at GitLab. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy, and you're listening to Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search GitLab.